What is up, everybody? This is Adam. Welcome back to Fouled Out. On today's episode of the podcast, Matt and I are going to be talking about the second weekend of March Madness now that we have 2 rounds under our belts for what I think has been a very fun tournament so far, but apparently that is up for debate with a lot of people out there. So we are going to talk about our overall feelings on the tournament so far, update our NBA draft big boards now that we have a couple of games under our belt, and then talk about what we're looking forward to in the Sweet 16 and beyond, because I think there are a lot of bangers coming up, and I'm super excited about it. But before we get started, just a reminder, you can reach out to us, fouledoutsports@gmail.com. Really appreciate you guys listening. We always love to hear from you. Baseball season starts tonight. The night we are recording this podcast, we have the New York Skankies at the San Francisco Giants. I am cautiously optimistic about the Red Sox upcoming season for how much I bitched about them in the offseason. They suck me in, man. They always suck me into it when baseball starts. So I'm excited to watch them. If you guys want to talk baseball, we got hockey playoffs coming up, NBA playoffs, the World Cup, all sorts of really fun stuff. Hit us up, fouledoutsports@gmail.com. You won't get a newsletter or any spam, just me responding back to you. We always love to hear from you guys, so keep those coming. Next week, we'll be previewing the Final Four, but also starting to answer some of the big questions for the NFL draft at the end of April. It's almost draft season on the podcast, which I think a lot of people would say is what we do best. So we're really looking forward to that as well. But for now, let's grab Matt. Let's talk March Madness. Let's go. All right, Matt is here, fresh off of a pre-show meeting that could only be described as high treason. Matt, how you doing, buddy?
Still reeling from that conversation, but
I am going to prison for comments made in a podcast pre-show meeting.
That is the best case scenario.
Yeah, take me there. See what happens. So we are ready for weekend 2 of March Madness. I don't know about you. I thought the first weekend was actually pretty fun. There's been quite a few complaints I've seen on Reddit and other places. You know what? Before we start talking about the first weekend, I did want to stop to give us some credit because, we talked last week about how in last year's tournament, there were only 3 upsets in the first round. And we called all of them on the podcast last year. This year, only 3 more upsets in the first round. And again, all 3 of them called on this podcast.
Yeah, well, and not just that, but, we each came to the podcast knowing that we had to pick 3 games. So I think we both probably picked more games than we felt comfortable with. And we went 3 for 5, a 60% hit rate on picking upsets is kind of crazy.
Yeah, especially when there's only 3. If there's 20 and you're like, hey, we hit 3 out of 5, then it's not as impressive as when there's literally only 3 upsets and you get all 3 of them. So, and we both had VCU to beat North Carolina, which was one of the games of the tournament with VCU coming back from a 19-point deficit in the second half. But then you called one. You had the high point over Wisconsin, and I had Texas over BYU. So we really kind of nailed it. But not only that, also to say that last week we were just talking about how this tournament was going to be very much the same as last year, where there was a lot of chalk. Yeah, and that's kind of what we've seen so far. We had a couple second round upsets that I think have added a little bit of a level of spice to this tournament that we didn't have last year, with Iowa beating Florida and Texas beating Gonzaga.
I think when you say Iowa, you mean the team formerly known as Drake.
Yes. Yes. And so I guess we can start there because my first topic was overall thoughts on the tournament. And the first one that I had is that Cinderella, as we knew her, is officially dead in college basketball, where, the traditional Cinderella that we've seen year over year is a smaller conference, double-digit seed. When I think of Cinderella, I go to right to George Mason. I go to Loyola Chicago, the smaller teams that people don't really know who make these big runs.
I don't want to go so far as to say it is fully dead simply because we are 3 years removed from Oral Roberts, right? We are certainly trending in that direction, but I don't know that there's enough data points for me to say it's truly dead, but
The reason I say the traditional Cinderella is dead is because the average margin of victory in the first round this year was 17.4 points per game, which is the highest in the history of the tournament, breaking the record that was set last year, where we only saw 3 upsets in the first round. Also, this is only the second time ever that the Sweet 16 has been entirely made up of power conferences. The only other time that's ever happened in the history of the tournament was also last year. So we seem to be moving into this era where upsets are less and less frequent. The bigger teams are not only beating the smaller teams now, but dominating them, where we're seeing a higher margin of, like, the more mid-major teams there are in the tournament, the higher the margin of victory we're seeing while we're like getting rid of these teams.
I will say, moving forward too, we don't know what adjustments the non-blue bloods, the schools that aren't at the top of the totem pole are going to be making now that this seems to be the status quo. And that can certainly influence what things are going to look like in the future too. So this is not going to be a finished product. Like, changes are going to happen again.
Yeah, I've said this about college football, but I think we are really in the wild, wild west of a lot of this stuff right now, where we're, there's so many things that not only mid-majors, but smaller, like major programs, Power 5 programs are having to deal with. So you have NIL, you have the transfer portal, and two that aren't really talked about as much is you have coaches leaving, basically, for bigger schools, and then you have conference realignment. So really the fact that like money has become so legalized in college sports is like really, I think, throwing this stuff off, where so like the bigger schools were probably always paying big prospects to go there. But now, anytime that a smaller school gets a good player, the bigger schools are just going in and saying like, oh, hey, here's a bunch of money to come play here.
Yeah.
Florida has that kid, Lee, who played at Ivy League school for the last couple of years. I think it was Princeton. And then they're like, oh, hey, we need a point guard. We're going to pay this guy to come be our point guard. You mentioned Iowa, who I want to talk about in a second, but they not only went and hired Drake's head coach after last year, Ben McCollum, but Ben McCollum also brings Bennett Sturts over with him, old friend of the podcast who we talked about last year when they upset Mizzou. And think about that, like with Ben McCollum, where he's with Drake last year. They win the Missouri Valley or whatever conference they play in.
Yeah.
They go into the tournament and beat Mizzou in the first round. And Iowa says, hey, we want you to be our head coach. In the past, even if Ben McCollum left Drake to go to Iowa, he wouldn't have been able to take someone like Bennett Sturts with him. And so there's like a certain level of math you have to do as a head coach where you're like, okay, I'm going to go to Iowa, but is Iowa a good destination for me when I can just stay here, have Bennett Sturts one more year, win our conference again, go to the tournament again, and then see what's out there for me next season? Where now, if I'm Ben McCollum and Iowa comes, they're like, hey, we want you to come here. You turn it into a way more desirable job by being able to bring your best players with you, right? So he's like, anywhere that he would have gone, he was going to take Bennett Sturts with him, who like is one of the best point guards in college basketball.
Yeah.
Hands down. You see the same thing with college football with like Curt Cignetti going to Indiana. That's how Indiana was built, is that Curt's like, do I want to go to Indiana? I'm like really set up at James Madison. And he's like, I'll just take the whole James Madison roster with me and build up Indiana and win a national championship in 2 freaking years with transfers. So even Iowa, who has not been good prior to hiring Ben McCollum, it becomes a much more desirable job when you can just take dudes with you. You're not just like inheriting Iowa's roster. You're just going to make your own roster year one and just be like, we're a completely different team now. So it's like a different level of math. I was also listening to a podcast about conference realignment the other day, and they were talking about Florida Atlantic, who made a good tournament run 2 years ago. as I think they were like an 8 or 9 seed and made it pretty far in the tournament. So, talking about just money in general, there's money out there for everybody because now bigger conferences see FAU make a run in the tournament, and they say like, hey, we want you to come play for our conference. So FAU takes a bunch of money, they move up to a tougher conference, and everybody was all hyped on them. They're like, oh, they're going to come back next year and be so good. I think they started the next year ranked in the top 10. But since moving into a bigger conference, FAU is about 500 in 2 years. So it's like it's everybody moving around. Coaches are going from the smaller schools to the bigger schools. Players go from the smaller schools to the bigger schools. The smaller schools don't even get left behind. They're like, we're going to go and play in a bigger conference. We're all just going to, everyone that is good at anything is just going to take more money and move to a higher level.
Yeah.
And that's why like the cream just keeps rising to the top in college basketball, and it makes it harder for these smaller schools to compete.
I just can't imagine a scenario where you're, a 19-year-old who is playing at a smaller school, have a big year, get noticed, and then you're going to turn down the extra couple $1 million that you're going to be offered to play at a bigger school? Like, yeah, probably not. Right.
Yeah. Well, especially if you're not a high level NBA prospect.
Yep.
Where maybe you're not a prospect at all, but you're a good college player, and they're like, yeah, come play here.
Exactly.
Like I was just talking about Lee from Florida. Like he's probably not on a lot of NBA draft boards at all.
Mm-hmm.
Or like Bennett Sturts, who's probably going to be a late first, early second. You're probably getting paid more money to play at Iowa this year than you're going to make the first year or two on your NBA rookie deal, depending on where you get drafted.
For reference, like those guys that do that, they're bringing in enough money, and granted, like their basic financial needs are kind of taken care of by scholarship and all that stuff, right? So they don't need to spend money on, housing and food, although probably are to some degree there. But like they're able to walk out of college with enough money that like they can go to the high level like financial management kind of places and be set for life.
Yeah. Unless you are a guard at Alabama, apparently, because you also need to sell 2 pounds of weed on campus and get suspended for the tournament.
I don't know that need is the right word, but
what? So like I think Cinderella, and you're right, like like I said, we're in the wild west of a lot of this stuff, and I think there will be caps eventually put on like how much money you're allowed to spend and all of that stuff, so it might level the playing field out a little bit more. But where we're at right now is that the traditional Cinderellas are dead. We're not seeing these like double digits. We didn't have anybody above a 12 even advance this year, and the 12s, the 12 that did advance, they're just like, oh yeah, that was fun, boom, you're out. Here's Arkansas and Darius Acuff, have fun with that. So we have a double digit seed, and it's Texas, right? Like Cinderella is Texas this year, the most expensive sports program in the entire country. I don't know. My overall thought on that is like, yes, the smaller schools are dead in the water until something changes. But also, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I continue to think that like March Madness is really the perfect playoff system for college sports, where like all of the small schools are given an opportunity to play. And like it's even perfect for the big schools because they're just like, okay, we let you play. We beat the shit out of you. Now shut up, go away, and let the big boys play the rest of the thing. But also, like, I don't think it's bad to not have the small schools in the Sweet 16, because like we saw this last year, and this is what I expect for the rest of this year is one, like we had some really, really fun games in the first 2 rounds. In the second round, I think there were 3 games that ended either on a buzzer beater or a buzzer beater attempt that would have won the game if it went in. So like the games were good. And what we saw last year is that the games kept getting better as we went on, ending in like an awesome national championship. But like the Final Four was great last year. The Elite Eight was great last year. Like everything was just awesome. And what happens a lot with the traditional Cinderellas is like they're really fun until they're not, and they get absolutely smushed at some level. Where eventually, like, yeah, cool, you beat a 5 and a 4 seed. Now you got to play the 1 seed, and it's 120 to 76 or something, and we end up with some worse games.
Even if you go all the way back to like Davidson with Steph Curry in their run, right? Like, let's say hypothetically you do have that diamond in the rough superstar on your roster. It is still a point of you gotta have 4 other guys on the court, and those teams just don't have enough physical talent to match up with the teams that are going to be there in the Elite Eight, the Final Four, all that. Like, those are the best teams for a reason.
Yeah. There's a really interesting point right now that college basketball is moving more and more towards size being important again. So like they're not playing small ball as much too. So like the bigger schools are able to recruit these like really big, really talented guys. Yeah. And when you're a smaller school, typically you have to pick between those two. You have to pick a big guy or a talented guy. You are not getting the big talented guys because they're getting sucked up by the bigger schools. But yeah, in the modern college basketball landscape, there's absolutely no way in hell Steph Curry comes back for that second year at Davidson. Like he, because he had 2 tournament runs at Davidson. Yeah. He had an awesome run, and then he came back and he had another great run. Yeah. Like nowadays, Duke or North Carolina, someone else in the Carolinas where Davidson
somebody that he beat says, here's all of the money. You're playing for us now.
Especially a player of that caliber in college. They'd be like, here is like, how much? Just like name the amount and we will give it to you. Like Duke would be paying him an absolutely ludicrous sum of money to be their point guard the following year.
Yeah. So some team does the reverse Kevin Durant.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think Cinderella in the traditional sense is dead, but that brings me to my second observation. How is Iowa not Cinderella? Right? Like we just talked about the fact that they took Ben McCollum and Bennett Sturts from
it's just
Drake.
Drake in a different jersey.
Exactly. Like if Drake
like there's like multiple other players from that team that came with them, I believe too.
Yeah, I think so. But like if those 2 guys had stayed at Drake, so say all the Drake guys stay at Drake and they come back this year and they're really good and they get a 9 seed and they beat Clemson in the first round and then they beat Florida in the second round, we would all be losing our minds. We'd just be like, Cinderella's here. The glass slipper fits. Like, this is awesome. But because Iowa's in the Big Ten, everybody's just like, oh, like Iowa's a fun story, but the traditional Cinderellas are gone, but I think the Cinderellas we're going to see are, well, it wasn't last year, it was like 2 years ago, North Carolina State made it to the Final Four as an 11 seed. I think we're going to see these like worse teams or smaller teams from bigger conferences become the Cinderellas. Like, someone like Iowa who underachieved all season, but obviously has guys who know how to win in March, make runs. Texas is an 11 seed and like they're making it. Neither of those teams have ever won a national championship. They have like very limited deep tournament run experience too. So like, I know Texas is really good at other things and people probably don't want to root for them. But like as a basketball program, it's kind of fun to see them do something, especially because I picked them to beat BYU, which always makes it more fun.
And I mean, I feel like their last really deep run might have been with Kevin Durant, or is there a year that I'm forgetting?
No, I think that's right. I think when they had KD, they won a couple of rounds. But
a lot of Kevin Durant talk this podcast, which
you can tell that. I can tell that you saw him eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich immediately before joining the podcast.
That was. Yeah, that was part of the pre-show that you all missed.
Can't stop thinking about Kevin Durant and that PB and J over here.
And I keep forgetting to buy bread, so I can't just make a PB and J and get over it.
Oh,
so,
goddamn, bread is so expensive nowadays.
For real.
Also referenced in the pre-show meeting, I think that Iowa is the Cinderella that people are looking for. I mean, I've seen a lot of people be like, oh, this tournament's boring because we don't have like a double-digit seed who's going on a run, stuff like that. If you're one of those people, the Iowa Drake Hawkeyes are the team that you're looking for, right? This, like Matt said, this is Drake in different packaging from last year. And that game against Florida was awesome.
Yeah.
Like, awesome. Like, it was just like, this is the game of the tournament. No, this is the game of the tournament. No, that's the game of the, like,
yeah.
You have VCU come back from down 19 against North Carolina. People are like, game of the tournament. Vandy versus Nebraska was absolutely lit. Game of the tournament. Kansas versus St. John's ends on a buzzer-beating layup. Game of the tournament.
Even some of the games that ended up being a blowout were more interesting. I mean, like the first half against Michigan, Howard was giving them a lot of trouble. Eventually, obviously, the talent came through and score was what it was. But like, there's been a lot of good games that maybe that the final score doesn't indicate how good the game actually was.
Yeah. Siena versus Duke, too. People were like,
yes.
For a long time.
Siena, I mean, Duke was trying to give that game away.
Yeah. Siena, we talked you picked a guy in last week's podcast of like guys to highlight who played ridiculous amount of minutes this season.
Yep.
Siena played all 5 of their starters 40 minutes and didn't put in a sub until there was 10 seconds left in the game.
I did notice that.
And it almost worked. And I was like, oh my God, if Siena beats Duke, how badly are they going to lose round 2? Because these guys are just going to be dead tired. But yeah, I think there's just been a lot of like super fun games. I was really disappointed that St. John's beat Kansas. I really wanted to see Darren Peterson versus Cameron Boozer and Duke.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about the big boards and stuff next because I have some thoughts on what we've witnessed so far. But like, I think when you have this many games where people are pointing to that and being like, wow, that is the game of the tournament, like that means it's been a really fun tournament so far. And like, sure, like I said, the average margin of victory in the first round was, over 17 points per game. And there were a ton of blowouts. But there were certain games like Kentucky versus Santa Clara was also an absolutely incredible game with an incredible finish. So I think you had to catch the right games in round 1, like Michigan cooked St. Louis, Alabama beat the crap out of Texas Tech and Hofstra. There have definitely been some stinkers, but I think we see that every year where like not every game is going to be amazing.
No, for sure.
We talked a lot last week about all of the NBA prospects that were in this tournament and like all the guys we'd been watching. Has the tournament so far changed your opinion on like your draft rankings or any of the prospects?
I mean, it didn't help Darren Peterson at all.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you this because I'm getting dangerously close to Brandon Miller, Scoot Henderson territory with Darren Peterson and Darius Acuff, where, Acuff has just been an absolute dog through the first 2 games of this tournament for Arkansas. He put up 24, 3-7 versus Hawaii and 36-6 versus High Point. And it's not only the fact that he put up 36 on High Point, it's more the fact that like High Point was going to beat them and High Point was going to be Cinderella because they beat Wisconsin in the first round. Yeah. They were going to beat Arkansas, and Darius Acuff said, "No, the fuck you are not." And he just took over that game in the second half, like absolute dog. And then on the other hand, like Darren Peterson
11 for 13 from the free throw line, which like, yes, I know he shoots pretty well from the free throw line generally, but like in a big game like that, when you take a lot of free throws, it is easy for just a regular dude to kind of miss a few more of those. And like, I don't know, there's just a lot of dots connecting that align to this is a guy who turns it on when the lights are the brightest.
I was laughing during the High Point game because last week I talked about how people were kind of like getting ridiculous on the Darius Acuff comps, where they were like talking about Kyrie Irving and Allen Iverson and all that shit. And I was like, yeah, that is overkill. That's way too much. And then I was watching the game and I was like, oh my God, he's better than Allen Iverson and Kyrie Irving. This is the best player I've ever seen. I love this guy. He like This is the thing though, and this is why I say I'm getting like dangerously close to this area, because I am very prone to watch these games and just completely forget about all of the negatives with
Yeah.
these guys and just be like, this man is awesome. I need this guy on my team. His defense is not good.
No.
It's not good. He's going to be like a Trae Young type of player, like offensive engine on one side of the ball where he can score a ton and feed everybody, but you're going to have to hide him half of the time.
He is a Detroit kid, a Cass Tech kid, so I definitely will be rooting for him. But yeah, I'm not expecting him to be a great defender.
It's not a two-way, not exactly a two-way force. But like, so you have him showing out, and people were like really gassing him up before the tournament started, and now we're just like throwing fuel on the fire here.
Yep.
On the other hand, Darren Peterson versus St. John's just felt like kind of listless to me. So
yeah,
he was 5 of 15 for 21 points. There's two things I want to give him credit for before I criticize him. So one, he was 8 of 10 from the free throw line. So like the jumper wasn't really working. Like 5 of 15 is obviously not a good day. And we always say this about NBA guys, is like, if you're going to be a superstar, you need to find a way to impact the game, even when you're having an off night. And he was getting to the free throw line and knocking down free throws. So I like that.
And to pile onto that, he had 4 blocks in that game. Like,
yeah. Also,
that is impacting the game.
Yep. Also down 2 with, I think it was like they were down 2 with like 18 seconds left or something like that. They basically just gave him the ball and they're like, Darren, please go get a bucket for us. We have nothing else going on right now. And he got fouled and went up and sank like 2 of the coldest free throws you will ever see.
Yeah.
You know, down 2 to this point, the biggest game in your life, you need to hit these to tie with 18 seconds left. Knocks them both down. Obviously, then Kansas gives up the worst buzzer beater defensive play you will ever see in your entire life, where St. John's inbounds the ball with 3 seconds left in the backcourt, and the dude hits a layup to win the game. Like,
you just can't do that.
Awful.
And I will also add, because one of the biggest concerns coming into the tournament was the talks about him like checking himself out of games and stuff like that. Played 36 minutes. He did not rest much.
Yeah. I think he deserves some credit. I don't want to like completely tear into him, but the thing that is like the most concerning to me, 0 assist in that game. Not 1 assist. Also, like, his biggest strength, I think, is the ability to create his own shot and like make tough buckets.
Yep.
But does every bucket have to be a tough bucket? Like, I just did not see him create a whole lot of separation in this. Even like against Cal Baptist, like he's knocking shots down in people's faces, but like, is every single shot need to be in someone's face?
The vibes I'm getting from him are Jalen Green. I think he's more talented than Jalen Green. I want to be very clear on that. Like, I think the things that Jalen Green does, Darren Peterson will be better at in the NBA. However, there's a reason why Jalen Green is kind of a nothing in the NBA now with the skill set that he has, because you need a lot more outside of that unless you are extremely good at those things. Again, I think if you are a one-trick pony in terms of I am just a scorer in the NBA, like, that will immediately lock you out of being a top 10 player.
Yeah, he just kind of reminded me of the type of receivers that I don't love in the NFL draft. We'll be talking about this on the
Yeah.
podcast soon enough. Is like you have these contested catch guys in college who they're like, wow, his contested catch rate is insane. And like, but what it means when you're making a ton of contested catches is that you're not creating a lot of separation at all. And I'm like, if you're not going to create separation in college, when are you going to create separation? Because it's not going to get easier, right? And
Yeah.
like, you can have the ones like Drake London who go on and are still very successful in the NFL, or you can have the ones like N'Keal Harry where it's just like, oh yeah, this guy can't do anything at the next level.
There are more guys that are just, hey, I'm big and strong and I'm going to physically dominate the lesser competition at the college level, right? And then there are those that are much more like Drake London and Mike Evans that, although Mike Evans definitely much faster, but or was when he came out, they also know how to use their body. It's not just I am big and physical and strong. I know how to manipulate other people with this asset that I have. And to bring this back to basketball, like if you are a huge scoring threat in Darren Peterson, you know the eyes of the defense are on you. And if you are still unable to manipulate the defense in order to create for others with that, that's concerning.
Well, I think that Darren Peterson is just more like the tip of the spear type of player where your offense is going to need to be run for him to get shots.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're not running your offense for him to create for other people because he's not going to be the tide that raises all the boats. Like he's not going to be the guy that makes everybody else on your team better. He's just going to be, the best player. The best version of him is just the best player on your team, but not a guy who is going to get a lot of assists and like make the other dudes on your team better. He's not a point guard. He's like an old school. He's like a throwback shooting guard, really.
So yeah, but like my thought with that is like what that like reminds me of is there was one year with Melo where there was a brief window in New York where it looked like they might have actually legitimately been a threat. And that was because they had Chauncey Billups. It's so hard in the modern NBA to have your best player not also be a guy who can create for others, because that Chauncey Billups-esque other player is going to be really expensive now.
This is where I'm at with Darren Peterson. I think we're going to be in the same spot here. Is like, I'm not moving him out of my top 3. Yeah,
no.
This is. I'm not making the same mistake I made with Brandon Miller and Scoot Henderson. I promised I wouldn't do that.
Yeah,
but I think that he is a lot more situationally dependent than Boozer and Debanza are going to be, the other guys in the top 3. If Darren Peterson goes to Indiana, where he can play with Tyrese Halliburton, I think he can be an absolute superstar.
Yeah.
But if he goes to like Brooklyn or Sacramento or like somewhere where they need him to make everybody else on the team better, he might put up good stats, but the team is not going to win a lot of games in that situation.
Yeah.
And people are going to be like, well, like he's an empty calories player. He's a dude who puts up a bunch of stats, but he can't win and blah, blah. And it's like, it's just not his skill set. It's like we talk about, and I'm going to talk about the NFL draft again, but it's like we talk about with the NFL draft is like, this guy has a specific skill set. You need to put him in a position to succeed. Tell me what he can do, and I'll do that.
Yes, and I'm going to say, though, like, if you
Improv.
are going to be
Yes,
an
man.
all NBA player in Darren Peterson. You had better develop to the level of at least being able to get like average like 3 assists per game.
Yeah.
If you can't do that, you're going to be stuck being Jalen Green. Right. And to be clear, I believe that Jalen Green's lack of maturity is what has stopped him from being able to develop further, because like I don't think it was until like last year where it finally hit him that like, oh no, Cade is actually better than me.
I still don't know if he actually believes that.
Yeah, like right, but like he was like throwing a lot of hot shit out there for like a few good years, when like there was a lot of evidence that was just like, no, you're not doing much of anything, man.
Yeah, I'm looking at the NBA draft game that we just played with Devin and Clint a couple weeks ago, and I'm trying to think about who is the best NBA player who doesn't really make others better. Okay, I would throw a name at you that's going to offend a lot of people. Tyrese Maxey. Does Tyrese Maxey make everybody else on the 76ers better? I'm looking at like Maxey and like Donovan Mitchell, I think would be my questions.
Yeah, I would still argue that they both do, just to a lesser degree, because of the stress that they create, like as a scoring force. And like, while yes, they are not your traditional create for others guards, they're not on that like so low end that they don't like create assists, right? Like they're still doing the thing.
Yeah, I mean, Maxey is averaging 7 assists per game and Mitchell's averaging 6, which is obviously a lot further than Peterson.
Yeah.
And people are going to be emailing and be like, I can't believe that you said those two names. But like, I don't know, man. Trae Young was averaging double-digit assists per game while actually not making anybody else on his team better.
Yeah.
James Harden won multiple MVPs while not necessarily making anybody else on his team better, getting to 10 assists per game. Like, I think assist is a very different stat than like actually making your teammates better.
For sure.
They go hand in hand a lot of the time, but like just because you get assists doesn't mean that you're making the other guys on your team better.
I'm saying with those two players, the way they play offensively does benefit other players on the court because of the way defenses have to react when they are attacking.
Yeah, and I think that's where Peterson's going to need to get to
in
the NBA is like, when everything is focused on you, how do you generate points offensively?
Mm-hmm.
With, buckets is one way, but also like setting up guys and doing that. So, honestly, overall, though, my board really hasn't changed through the first two games. I think like everybody just kind of is who I thought they were, really, because like this is kind of what I thought about Darren Peterson before. I already had him third. I had him behind Boozer and Debansa.
And if you are significantly changing where you have a player over 2 games, then we need to set someone up with some therapy. So
this is what I did with Brandon Miller. I'm trying to not make the same mistakes of the past.
We have learned and grown as individuals.
Which is amazing for me because I can only do that with basketball. I can't. I can learn lessons and move forward with basketball, but I keep picking the fucking Atlanta Falcons to win the NFC South every single year.
And you're going to do it again.
I absolutely am. I already know that I am.
Because it's going to be the Double B-Rop show.
I wish I knew how to quit you. Atlanta Falcons. I have Boozer number 1, which I think is becoming more and more of a controversial pick. I was having a conversation with someone the other day who's like, yeah, my brother thinks that he's going to be the guy that gets a GM fired because he's too slow and he's not athletic enough and he blah, blah, blah. That TCU game in the second round kind of like just pointed out everything I know about Cam Boozer to be true, where
Yeah.
it was extremely tight in the first half. Cam Boozer not playing well. I think he had only taken like 1 or 2 shots or something like that at halftime, and they were only up by 4 on TCU. He comes out in the second half and just dominates and takes over, and they blow the doors off TCU in the second half. And like Duke, I think like it's masked because it's Duke, and Duke is always good, and people are like, "Oh, well, Duke's just good. It doesn't matter." This Duke team is only this good because they have Cam Boozer.
Yeah.
He like this Duke team is up there with Michigan in the Evan Maya rankings. The only reason that they are that high is specifically because they have Cam Boozer. And like I went over all the advanced stuff last week of he's leading the league in like PER and box plus minus and win shares and like all of these things. And it's very like Tim Duncan-y to me, where it's like it's quiet, right? It's not Debanza scoring 35. It's not Darren Peterson's elite bucket making, but it's just like making the right play and the winning play every single time. Like he's also not out here doing stupid shit like we saw Nate Ament, the kid from Tennessee who's going to get drafted. Like he's out there making freshman mistakes in their last game against Virginia. Cam Boozer's just not making those mistakes. Like he's just someone I know is going to be good at the next level, and I think there's a lot of upside. And then Debanza just like did Debanza things against Texas, and I called that when I picked the upset. Is I was like, I hate this upset because Debanza could just score 35 or 40, but he could also just score 35 or 40 and it not matter, and he scored 35 and it sure didn't matter.
I don't know if I'm ready to declare who I have number 1 as of this moment. Right now, I think I want to do a little bit more of a deep dive. But it is between Boozer and Debanza. Peterson is number 3 for me. Simply because of some of those, concerns about maturity or like the ability to create for others, which to me also speaks to lack of vision. It's way too early for me to necessarily like plant a flag in the ground. And also I think it makes more sense to kind of like just have tiers rather than like a full-on ranking.
Yeah, I mean I agree with you, because even though I say I have Boozer number 1, I fully believe that Boozer and Debanza are both going to be very, very good pros. And I think Debanza has a higher ceiling just because of the athleticism. And honestly, like if my team, if the Kings had the number 1 overall pick, I may want Debanza over Boozer just because like you need to just swing for the fences as much as you can.
Even though Boozer is less flashy and might have a little bit lower of a ceiling, I just feel like there is that like silent killer in him. I mean, especially I cannot imagine how competitive this kid is, knowing that his dad was a high level power forward in the NBA.
Yeah.
Like I've got to imagine like he's got to be so disciplined on like his training and all that shit.
Yeah, I think that he knows what it takes to be a good pro.
Yep.
He obviously there's a lot of experience in his corner, and like he's the one I feel safest about in this entire draft, just saying like I know he will be good.
What percentage chance would you put at him being a better pro than his dad was?
I believe he will be. I want to say like somewhere between like 60 and 70%, because I just think he's more talented than his dad was. But like Carlos Boozer is a super underrated player. Throughout NBA history. Like he was really good and like really solid for a really long time. And like
the pick and roll game with him and Darren Williams was a cheat code.
If he just ends up being his dad, I think that's worthy of a top 3 pick in this draft.
Yes.
It's a good fucking player.
There's so many players that have a long career in the NBA that never have a season that reaches that level.
Yeah, he was 16 points per game for his career, which is pretty good. But at the height of his career,
he was over 20.
Yeah, at the height of his career, actually, only 2.
Really?
Surprisingly, yeah.
Now I think about it, those were lower scoring times, and it's not like Darren Williams wasn't scoring himself.
Yeah.
Didn't they have Karolinko back then still, too?
Yeah, they had AK-47. They had that Utah team underachieved. Man, but he finished in the top 10.
That was the story of Utah basketball.
It really is. He finished in the top 10 for MVP voting twice. He was a 2-time All-Star, 1-time third-team All-NBA. Yeah. So, I'm going to up I think there's like an 85% chance that he's a better pro than, like, just accolades-wise. I think that he's going to end up being someone who is really good and on a lot of All-Star teams and All-NBAs. But his dad was like an automatic high teens. Like, so there's 2 years he scored 21 points per game with 12 boards and 10.4 boards. Like, he was a really good, really underrated player. But I think statistically and accolades wise, his son will be better than him.
I'd probably put it at about 70, just because obviously the physical talent is there, but like, we're also looking at a time where it's almost easier for these guys that are super talented. Like, you can't just beat up on them. So
yeah,
it's a different era of basketball.
He also has a 3-ball that his dad never had, but that's just a product of like when he grew up.
That is a product of the modern era.
So my big board right now, if you want to do it in tiers or you want to do it whatever, I have Boozer, DeBanza, Peterson as my top 3 still.
Mm-hmm.
The 4th spot is where I'm like really struggling because I want to say Acuff. I want to just be like, Acuff, I love this guy. He's awesome. But like, Caleb Wilson is really good and has a skill set that's very difficult to find for someone that size. Like, he is going to be a very good defender at the next level. And right now projects as being like a dude who can shoot a bit, who can finish at the rim, kind of like Evan Mobley a little bit.
Yeah.
But if he can learn to like handle the ball and generate his own shot a bit more, he has a shitload of upside too. So like, I totally see why people have him 4th. And people are like, okay, 5th is where we get into like the Acuff, Wagler, Kingston Flemings, like all of those guys.
Yep.
Acuff can jump to 4 for me. So like, that's where I really start debating, and I'll have a more informed opinion of it as we get closer to the NBA draft to say like, this is my board. But that's like what's up for grabs is like Wilson and Acuff 4 and 5. And then like Kingston Flemings, Burries, I think is a really interesting guy. Yeah. Like one of the things I'm really looking forward to in the Sweet 16 is that a lot of these guys are actually playing each other coming up here. So like, you have Acuff versus Burries in Arizona versus Arkansas. I think like one thing we didn't talk about with Acuff too is you made the point with the Brandon Miller versus Scoot Henderson thing, is that we were judging Brandon Miller for like not playing that well in the tournament, but Scoot Henderson never played in the tournament, like never had an opportunity to really prove like, hey, here's who I am in this big tournament. And we're criticizing Peterson for his game against St. John's, but Acuff has only played Hawaii and High Point in the tournament. But like, to be fair, he was also doing this in the SEC tournament. But hasn't played a team like Arizona with like their length and athleticism and just like overall being really fucking good at basketball. So I'll be like super, super interested to see how Acuff plays against Arizona. Phylon, the kid from Alabama, is going up against Michigan. So kind of like a similar situation where,
Yeah.
funny thing with Alabama, I picked Hofstra to beat them in the first round. And I was like, hey, Alabama just shoots a shit ton of threes. All it takes is for them to have, one game where they go cold from three and all of a sudden they're out. I didn't really talk about the flip side of that, where Alabama could just get super fucking hot from three and just beat the shit out of everyone, which is what's happened so far. They put 90 on Texas Tech and beat them by 25 in round two. So I don't think that is a guarantee for Michigan at all, the way that Alabama is shooting the three ball so far in this tournament.
No. I mean, it is an interesting matchup, though, because, you mentioned college basketball is going a lot more in the big direction, and that is something that Michigan has absolutely done. So that kind of does pose a bit more of a challenge for them in that scenario, because you got to shoot over them. So
yeah, I think Michigan will win.
Yeah,
we talk about this all the time in the NBA, where it's like you're going to take 43s, and if you can hit 40 or 50, and if you can hit 40% of them, you can win the game. That's how I feel about Bama, where it's just like they're just going to shoot a shit ton of threes, and if they get cold, it's over. But if they get hot,
well,
got an issue.
And that's a situation too where like movement shooters are your best friend. Spot up shooters. Maybe you can create those good looks, but that's to me a little bit less reliable to count on getting those looks than having guys that can move without the ball to create the looks, especially the screens. So
I think that'll be fun. Keeping a close eye on Illinois and Houston, because you have Keaton Wagler and Kingston Flemings, two of the guards who are going to go in the top 8, playing directly against each other.
Yeah.
Kind of same situation with Acuff and Burries in Arizona. I think Burries will guard Acuff in that game, which will be super interesting. I don't think Acuff will guard Burries because, like we said, not a great defensive player. I think it's going to be the same thing. It could be the same thing with fight. I would just love to see like, hey, we're just going 1-on-1. Fuck it. Which would be actually disadvantageous to Arizona, because Arizona's like has so much talent and they're so good, but they're like, fuck it, we ball. Here you go. But Illinois versus Houston, I think is like very much the same situation, where like Keaton Wagler versus Kingston Flemings. Like I think Flemings will guard Wagler, which will be interesting. I don't think Wagler's going to guard Kingston Flemings.
No.
Also, just Wagler against like the physicality of that backcourt, for like he's not gonna have fun.
No.
With Illinois, when I was making my list of guys that I wanted to talk about last week, I left off someone really important, and I debated putting him on there, and I just didn't do it. There is a gentleman who plays for Illinois by the name of Andrej Stojakovic, and he's exactly who you think he is. He's my boy Peja Stojakovic's son. And he's a very bad 3-point shooter. And I hate it. He shot like 25% from 3 this year. And I was like, how dare you? He's just a mid-range guy. He's just got a little midi.
What year is he?
Junior?
He
played at Cal the last couple of years and transferred.
The hope is run out.
Illinois is like really funny because they have this Keaton Wagler kid who, like, if you guys don't know him, he's one guy we talked about last week who's going to be a top 10 pick in this draft. But the difference between him and almost every other top 10 pick in this draft is that Keaton Wagler was a 3-star prospect coming out of high school.
Yeah.
He's a freshman and went from like being a 3-star to he's played his way into this season. Like, this guy's going to be a high NBA draft pick. So that's kind of cool story. They also were just like, fuck it, we're going to get a bunch of European pros to come play at Illinois. It's just like they have I think their their power forward, I think it is like 24 years old European guy who should be playing pro basketball, and he's just at Illinois lighting people up. But they have like an interesting build for a team. That game is going to be a war of physicality because Houston is extremely physical as well. Iowa versus Nebraska, the Cornpocalypse. Let's go. Our guy Bennett Sturts against Nebraska, who I think Nebraska had never won a NCAA tournament game before this year, and now they've won 2. And they just had a great game against Vandy. And just, I don't know what else to say about Iowa versus Nebraska. Nebraska's the whitest fucking team I've ever watched in my life. So the Nebraska basketball team looks exactly, at least the starting 5 look exactly how you would picture the 5 starters for Nebraska looking. Just watching them the other day, I was like, that is definitely Nebraska.
I think you put it well in a text the other day. Is they look like the opposing team in a movie about an inner city basketball team.
Yeah, they look like the villains in a movie about an inner city basketball team, is what I said to Matt the other day. And then back to the top half of the bracket. So Michigan State and UConn is just classic matchup of college basketball teams.
We haven't talked enough about Keyshawn Hall.
Oh wait, yeah, I forgot. Where's Auburn, Matt? Who's Auburn playing?
It's one of those A teams.
Yeah, it's fine. They're out there somewhere. There's a lot of teams with an A. But yeah, Michigan State and UConn, classic matchup. Duke and St. John's, just like, I was listening to a podcast today about Rick Pitino's journey of being one of the best college basketball coaches of all time, and then getting banished. I was
wondering where that sentence was about to go, because it could have gone some really interesting.
There's so many places it could go. I have another really funny one for you after this, but Pitino, like, getting banished from college basketball and having to go to Greece and coach a Greek team, and then coming back and like making Iona good, and then coming to St. John's and like making St. John's relevant again and the best they've been since the 90s. And now he gets Duke. Like, is super fun.
I get that you have Cameron Boozer, but that has to be the last matchup that you want if you're Duke.
Yeah.
Like, if anyone is going to coach the hell out of that game, it is Rick Pitino.
I also, I saw this post on Reddit where the guy was like, John Shire, the coach for Duke, is who people think Ryan Day is, the football coach for Ohio State, where like he just cannot win big games. And I just, as a college basketball coach,
also Ryan Day is. So
yeah, he won a national championship though.
He kind of just fell into that.
Didn't beat Michigan, didn't count.
Yeah.
But if I was a college basketball coach, especially like if you were unaccomplished, like you haven't won a national championship yet, I would not want to look across the aisle and see Rick Pitino pacing up and down.
No.
Rick Pitino is like, the most Rick Pitino thing ever was St. John's hit that game-winning layup to beat Kansas, and Rick Pitino didn't celebrate at all. He just walked right over to Bill Self and just shook his hand, and then they walked off. Like, there was no, he was not excited at all. He's just like, yep, okay, there you go.
Yeah, Adam, no. If you're going to sit here and defend Ryan Day by saying he won a national championship, I would like you to tell me your thoughts on Doug Peterson.
That's fair. Touche. No, I got to tell you, the funniest thing in all of college basketball, the fans will enjoy this. Will Wade. I don't know if people remember who Will Wade is, but he coached at LSU. Mm-hmm. He's a great college basketball coach. He coached at LSU a couple years ago, was like really building up LSU, and then got caught paying players in an FBI sting. Like literally like the year before NIL became a thing. Will Wade gets fired because he is caught by the FBI paying players, basically, which everyone was doing under the table before the legalization of NIL in college basketball. So he gets fired and like banished to the shadow realm. He has to take a year off. He gets hired at McNeese, coaches McNeese for 2 years, gets him to the tournament. Like really excited. They're really, really good. They go like 30-2 last year. So he gets hired by NC State this year, coached at NC State this year. They make the first four. I think they got eliminated by Texas in the first four. Yeah. LSU needs a basketball coach. There are reports coming out today that LSU is hiring Will Wade away from NC State. The school that fired him and banished him to the Shadow Realm for paying players and getting caught in an FBI sting is now rehiring the man like 5 years later. Now that paying players is legal, they're like, come back, pay the players. Welcome back to LSU. Not only is it hilarious that LSU is rehiring this man, but also the fact that he just used NC State for one season. He's like, yeah, hey, look, I can also win at this level still. And then LSU is like, all right, get on back here, you rascal. Like,
we just need a TV show that's like the real football coaches of the Bayou.
Yeah,
like
this
is some Real Housewives shit, 100%.
Dude, fucking Will Wade and Lane Kiffin being LSU's two big coaches. Oh my God. Like, I would watch that show. I would executive produce that show and then I would watch the shit out of it. LSU is going to be so much fun over the course of the next couple of seasons. Just from every perspective, they're probably going to be good at football and basketball again with those two guys.
Yeah.
And all of the drama is just going to unfold.
Absolutely.
All over the place. What else? For the Sweet 16, we kind of ran through all the games. 10 of the 16 remaining teams have never won a national championship. So I'm hoping we get somebody new. The historical data that says who can and can't win a national championship. All of the teams that it says can win a national championship, all of the tier 1 contenders are still here. So you had Duke, Arizona, Michigan, Purdue, Iowa State, and Houston. They're all still there. So, like, my bracket right now, not doing the best, but you know what I do is I just take those 6 teams and just take them all as far as possible. So, could get a lot better coming soon. The Florida thing really didn't hurt me because I had Florida losing in the Sweet 16. But my problem is I had them losing to Vandy, and Vandy's out. So
I am in the same situation. So
yeah, how's your bracket doing? Is it all right, or is it like
are
you torn up?
I don't sweat until someone from my Final Four gets knocked out, and I still have all of my Final Four.
I think I have 6 of my Elite 8. I think are still standing as well.
I have 7. The only one I've lost is Vandy.
I had Vandy and Gonzaga. I lost Gonzaga as well. I basically, in the pools I'm in...
You're right. I'm at 6 as well.
Oh, okay. In the pools I'm in, basically if Duke wins the national championship, I'll win the pools. I gotta say, like, after 2 games, I don't feel as good about Duke winning the national championship. They're missing like 2 of their key players right now. They're hoping to get the center back soon, but I think the guard is done. I don't feel as good about that. I would feel better. Like, originally I picked Michigan, and then I was like, well, the pool I'm in is going to be, with work, it's going to be a bunch of people from Michigan. They're all going to pick Michigan. So I need to pick someone different. And I switched from Michigan to Duke. I think I would feel better if I had Michigan right now. I know you have Arizona. I would never feel good about having Arizona.
I don't feel good about having Arizona.
They've looked good so far, but nothing. If Acuff just goes for like 40 and 10 and they beat Arizona in the Sweet 16, I'd just be like, yeah.
If history has told us anything, it is not going to be some player going off that's going to knock Arizona out. It's going to be Arizona that knocks Arizona out. So.
Yeah, that's fair. The team I really wish I had stuck with, another team that I test drove before I submitted my bracket, was Houston. And I was like, that's the team I wish I would have stuck with. Because like after that Siena game, There was a stat that no one seed who's ever won the national championship has won their first round game by less than 15 points.
How much can Flemings drive himself up your board by making that run?
I mean, anybody can get up to 4 on my board right now. I would say that's my first spot where I'm like, who is going in this spot? So it's like we talked about the top 3, and then the rest of it is kind of open. Like, I know who's going to be in it. It's Caleb Wilson, it's Darius Acuff, Kingston Flemings, Keaton Wagler, LeBaron Philon, like all of those guys. Braden Burries, the kid from Arizona.
Yep.
That's going to make up the rest of my top 10, but that order is completely up in the air, and any single one of them can be in any single one of those spots.
If you made me pick today who I would put it for, I think for me it would be Kingston Flemings. But I will posit that by saying that is largely based on like how strongly I feel it is important to have a two-way point guard in the modern NBA. And he's a two-way point guard that's got some size. But yeah, I mean, I think he still has some work to do. And I want to see a couple of big games from him. Like, show me that you are a guy that's going to rise above it in important moments.
Part of me is like, does Caleb Wilson end up getting that 4 spot just because there are so many good guards in this draft that like Caleb Wilson brings something to the table that nobody else does because he's a big forward who's going to be a defensive force. And then any like whatever offense he gives you is just upside there.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing with like Burries. Burries is more in that like Darren Peterson kind of role where he's not a point guard. He's a shooting guard. So can he kind of move up the board? Like, that'll be interesting. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think fun tournament so far. I think it's just going to get more fun. Like, there's a lot to look forward to this weekend. I guess like the other thing on the Houston side though too is they beat the crap out of Idaho and Texas A&M. Like, it's another school where I'm like, all right, Illinois is a challenge. Let's see how you deal with Illinois. Let's see how you deal with Keaton Wagler. It's so wide open for Houston right now because assuming they beat Illinois, they're going to get either Iowa or Nebraska, which is, it's not Florida. It's not who you expected to see there. And they could just go from, I don't know. There's any of the 6 teams that I mentioned who the historical data fits, all of them can win, and they're all still there. We're going to get who?
We're going to get Drake in the Final Four.
Drake in different clothes. I'd be down. I love Bennett Sturts. I kind of forgot about him, and I was listening back to last year's pod where we were talking about him, and then I was watching him the other day, and I was like, we should have mentioned him again because he's awesome, and he, like, honestly was not very good in that Florida game, and then at the very end makes, like, the game-winning play to set the dude up in the corner for the game-winning 3, and I was just like, yeah, that's our guy.
Yeah.
Bennett Sturts, I expect him to be better against Nebraska, so... any other thoughts on the tournament before we sign off?
It's been better than people are giving it credit for. And, that's a shame, but I think it's also, look, there's TikTok, there's YouTube Shorts, it's still like, everyone wants the big flashy things, and I think we should enjoy the things that are slow and good as well. Just like the al pastor that I cooked last night. Like, sometimes the good things take time.
Can't speak. Oh, wow. That was beautiful, Matt. I love that, especially because you tied in the al pastor. Yeah, I agree with you. So, all right, that is it for us. As always, Fouled Out can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast, Overcast, anywhere you get your podcast. You can hit us up on Gmail, fouledoutsports@gmail.com, and you can find our videos on YouTube, the video version of the podcast, as well as the shorts. Just look up Fouled Out Sports. The plan for the next couple of weeks of the podcast, so Matt and I will be back next week to do a little Final Four preview for about half the pod, and then we're going to spend the second half of the pod talking about the biggest questions for the upcoming NFL draft at the end of April, because when we come back next week, it will be April. We're going to be recording on April 1st. And that means it is NFL draft time on the pod. So we're going to talk about what do we do with Jeremiah Love and Caleb Downs, that you have like elite players at non-elite positions in this draft. We're going to talk about
ready to talk about our month game.
Yeah, we're talking
have
about
you heard about that?
Yes.
Oh yeah, there are concerns about the legitimacy of the measurements of arm lengths.
Yep.
At the combine.
I can't fucking wait to get back into football and talk about arm length again for another goddamn year. I honestly, like, real quick, you know, we got Will Campbell on the Patriots with his little tiny T-Rex arms, and then Reuben Bain is going to be one of the top picks in this draft, and some people are saying that he's got little tiny T-Rex arms. I'm like, is the future of NFL football just dudes with little tiny arms fighting in the trenches? I think this is it. It's tiny arm tackles versus tiny arm edge rushers, and we'll just see who wins.
I would love for there to be a future where there is a game in the NFL played where they just render in like all the players as T-Rexes, and you're just watching a bunch of T-Rexes play football.
Hey, if we can do the Nickelodeon version of football, like who did they do, like SpongeBob football or whatever it was?
Yeah, they did something like that too.
If we can do that, we could do T-Rexes. So, but yeah, so we're gonna talk about like Caleb Downs and Jeremiah Love. I want to talk to you about Fernando Mendoza next week, because I think we're very much on the same page with him, and I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. So that's something to look forward to. Final Four next week, plus some NFL draft stuff. And then for the rest of April, man, NFL draft pods, my guys, the gambling stuff, the controversial prospects, all of the things, a mock draft before we get to the draft. And I'm excited to do it, because a lot of people would say that that's what we do best, is NFL draft on this podcast. So, but all right, guys, we will see you soon.
Yep. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye,
Mom.
Robin.
Bye, Poophead.